What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? It's your boys over here at Three Man Weave. I'm your lovely coach ZD, and I'm building with CJ. We coming at you guys live, man. It's a Monday, June 22nd. It's the day before the draft, so we'll get right into that. We'll finish our mock draft. We did 1 through 10 in
hmm
episode one. We did 11 through 20 in episode two. We're doing 21 through 30 in this one, but we'll make it a little quicker because it's at the back half. We'll also talk about some things to watch out for on draft night. Obviously, there's some interesting things going on with all the teams and the Giannis situation. We'll talk about that, and we'll talk about some potential steals in the NBA draft. CJ and I believe this is one of the more loaded draft classes in the last couple of years. But I'm feeling good today, man. Bringing the energy. We kind of just got right into it today, so yeah, I'm doing pretty good. But how are you doing today, CJ?
Doing good, bro. Just like you said, draft tomorrow. Excited for that. I feel like, the closer that I've been watching these past couple of years, this is like a huge moment for a lot of players, young men that have been working towards this point. So it's cool. Like I didn't really look at that before, but for some reason, I think whenever the Wemby draft happened, it's like, dude, I've been watching this kid since he was like 14, 15 years old and now seeing him come into the league. So it's like a surreal moment, even though like I haven't done anything myself in preparing for that moment, but it's just cool seeing it, they start to tear up, they start crying. And it's a huge accomplishment just to even get to that point. So excited. And then obviously like we've been mentioning and we've been doing in our mock draft these past two episodes, just this draft class is loaded. So I'm excited to see where these players land, what they're going to end up looking like, and obviously summer league coming up very soon too. Like, just we'll be able to, the season is never ending. It feels like I don't know, for some maybe it's because the Thunder won last year, kind of felt like it was dragging a little bit, but it seems like literally the season ended. Now the draft's about to happen, summer league, and then before we know it, the season's gonna be starting, right back up. But I'm feeling good, bro. Like you said, feeling good, excited for tomorrow, and bringing the energy on this Monday. Been watching the World Cup, of course, but just ready for this draft and ready for our dynasty draft as well. That we'll probably do a little something whenever that happens tomorrow night or Wednesday night as well. But exciting, hopeful, and
Yeah,
we'll see what the Thunder end up doing, man. I know we've been
yeah,
talking about trading up and whatnot, but even if we don't, I think these picks, these
yeah,
players can make a difference for sure.
for sure. And that something happened with the Thunder
hmm
yesterday, I believe.
Yeah,
Wasn't today because there was a lot more news today. But yeah, I've been watching the World Cup too, man. Messi's crazy. Just a lot
go.
of good stuff happening in soccer. So
hmm
got to pay attention to it when possible.
Of
But
course,
we'll just get right into it, man. I know maybe you can get it out the way for the people. What happened? You can tell them the situation with the
for
Hawks.
sure. Yeah. So,
And then yeah, we'll talk about
yeah,
other stuff.
I'll give it a little rundown of kind of how I like found out about it because we watched House of Dragons last night. Shout out to that. That's also something I've been watching. But we were watching a YouTube video afterwards, and Zach out of nowhere says Aaron Wiggins traded to the Hawks, and I thought he was trolling me because like Zach will do stuff like that every now and then. But this is the official trade, ladies and gentlemen. The Oklahoma City Thunder are finalizing the trade to send guard Aaron Wiggins to the Atlanta Hawks for two second-round picks, Atlanta's in 2030, and the least favorable of Hawks/Lakers in 2032. So, two second-round picks for Aaron Wiggins. I was telling Z, man, like, of course it sucks. Aaron Wiggins saved basketball, right? I think that's the thing with his fan base and what he was able to do for the Thunder. But I'm gonna be honest with you. I think true fans and people that aren't just biased to a player and just kind of the results that you give for the team. If we're being honest, he really didn't have that great of a year. Injuries, this and that. He had moments, but playoffs, he didn't get that much run. But even in his time that he was playing, he didn't. He looked nothing like the player that he was for our championship year, and that was literally last year. So it sucks. Maybe it was just a down year, but obviously he's a great player. We've seen what he could do for a winning basketball team or a team that's trying to compete. And I think him going to the Hawks is a great a great pickup for them. We were talking about it right before we started. Obviously, Jalen Johnson, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, CJ McCollum. I think he ended up signing a 1-year deal, so he's returning for
Hmm.
one more year. So getting that team and then getting more depth for your guard spots coming off the bench. I think that will add a great little scoring punch for them. And obviously Kaminga is still there as well. They have a lot of good young forwards slash guards that are going to be very interesting to see, especially in the Eastern Conference this year. But for us, I think it was really just so we could try to avoid being in that second apron as much as we can. Obviously, that's the future that we've set for ourselves, and I think rightfully so. We want to chip, and you have to. I think like I've talked about before, we've learned from that lesson with James Harden, where we're just gonna let these guys walk and not get into the luxury tax just because we could try to move him around and get another play better pieces. And I think we've seen where that took us and then why it took us so long to get to where we're at now. But we're locked in the future, so we're gonna be paying Dub, Chet, Shea. That's pretty much majority of our salary, so we're gonna have to try to figure out. And I think that's what Sam Presti was trying to do with this trade, trying to just move a little bit of the money around. He was I think you mentioned it, Z. He's like a $10 million player, for paying $10 million essentially for a player that really isn't going to get that much playing time. And even when he did, he wasn't that impactful. And that's the duality of sports. It sucks. He gave us great moments. I remember him coming off I think he got 40 last year, and there was a game
Yeah.
this year where he had incredible moments, but that's the name of the game. It sucks. It's NBA is a business at the end of the day, and they're gonna do what's in the best in their interests. And as of right now, we're trying to shed some of this money. Obviously, he was a great player, but like you said, getting some second round picks, and I think we know with Presti and what he's been able to accumulate all these draft picks for the future. Using some picks to try to get a higher pick, or getting another player like Alex Caruso type of role player that they're looking for. He's always looking for those type of things. And obviously getting these future second round picks, we'll see what those turn into. You know what I mean? Like, we don't know. And like I said, 2030 and then 2032. So it's not like we're getting them this year, we're getting them next year. It's 3 years, 5 years down the road. So something that we're gonna wait for. But I really think it was just to shed that money. So makes sense. I get it. And I'm gonna be honest, like I said, he was kind of the odd man out in the rotations this year, and kind of saw that the writing was on the wall, as we like to say. I kind of foresaw this happening because we do need to cut back on some money, and he was the one that didn't perform that well this year, sadly. But shout out to Aaron Wiggins, man. I think you're gonna do great in Atlanta. I think he's gonna be a help for that second unit to really develop themselves and really get it going in the regular season for next year. So shout out to them, and I think
Yeah,
that's a
yeah,
great
yeah.
great pickup.
For sure, bro. And yeah, like you said, I mean, you explained it pretty well. He's on like a $9.5 million contract, and the Thunder can't afford to be paying that for somebody who may not play. There was a couple other things that happened around the league. We saw Colin Gillespie, Jordan Goodwin get re-signed. You brought up C.J. McCollum.
Hmm.
I did want to bring up Dusty May.
Yep.
We talked about the Mavericks a couple
We
months ago. I'm sorry for skipping around. Obviously, I know we'll touch on some of these players, but we'll get into some of the big topics here. But Dusty May, I mean, Michigan head coach. He's a winner. In my opinion, and I know you probably agree, they didn't need to fire Jason Kidd, but this is a decent replacement. Cam sent it to our group chat today. I saw that, but just an interesting first move for Masai Ujiri. My first thoughts are initially, I mean, what's this mean for Cooper Flag? I don't think his role is going to change.
hmm
Derek Lively and Gafford, there's a lot of question marks there, but I believe that they'll still be useful, especially after the draft tomorrow night. Whenever they do get an A cuff, a Mikel Brown Jr., somebody else who's going to be able to score for them alongside Cooper Flag. And then there's another person on their team who I love. There's a couple guys, Najee Marshall and
hmm
Max Christie, the
Yep.
former Laker. The Mavericks aren't a horrible team. Dallas, you guys have been through the fire the last 2 years, to say the least, with the Luka Doncic trade and then pretty much cleaning house. But things are looking bright for you guys. After tomorrow night, it'll even look brighter. But first thoughts, we know Dusty May is a winner, obviously, at Michigan. Michigan was one of the best teams in the nation last year.
Hmm.
We've talked about Ade Mara, Lindenberg, Elliot Cadeau, a lot of guys on that squad who can really go. So he's no stranger to coaching people who can do something for him. And I like him because he's defensive minded.
Yeah, I was just about to
That's
say that.
exactly what the yeah I know. The Mavericks
Hmm.
are a defensive first team. We saw that last year being top 5 in defensive rating. Um, and I know you agree with all these points I'm making. I just believe that we said this on the pod if you guys had watched it, but Masai Ujiri is somebody who's gonna clean the whole house and restart. Like he's gonna
Hmm.
restart from the ground up. He's gonna get people in that he likes. I'm assuming the interview went extremely well. That's why they made this hire, and I'm sure he talked to Cooper Flag and Irving, and who looks great by the way.
Hmm.
Hopefully he might come back and just be on the Mavericks and be the Kyrie that we saw before he went down. Obviously the athleticism won't be there as much, but the scoring will still be there. But I thought this was the most interesting move
Hmm.
in the last week, just because the Mavericks have been desperately looking for a head coach. And we know, the Orlando Magic got Sean Sweeney from San Antonio.
Hmm.
Other teams are making moves to get good head coaches in the building. So yeah, I like this from Masai Ujiri and more life to the Mavericks, man. I know I'm a Lakers fan, and you guys are probably like, oh, you shut up, bro. Like you took our best player, our baby, but I don't believe y'all will suck for too long.
No, no, I think it's like you said, when Masai Ujiri comes into the building, he's ready to, you know, start brand new with a brand new slate, and I think this is a perfect opportunity for him. Obviously, Dusty May, you just spoke very highly of him, and I agree with everything you said. Obviously, he led Michigan to the championship this past year. He's a winner. Michigan was good before he got there, but I feel like they really didn't get over the hump. They weren't really able to make it deep into a playoff championship run, and they were obviously able to do that this past year with a loaded team. And like you mentioned, the defense, I think that's where I think this would be a great fit. We saw what that Wolverines defense looked like all year long, being
Yeah.
one of the best. And, even when I was watching it, especially in college basketball, I mean, in general, every possession matters for basketball, but college basketball playoff time, tournament time, it just looked like they were very locked in. And I think with the roster that the Mavericks have, him, walking into, essentially not like the perfect scenario, right? You have a great pick, you have Cooper Flag, but you just have defensively, you have a lot of players that you can utilize their skill sets very well, and I'm very hopeful for them too. Like we mentioned, we're not Mavs fans, but I think it's another one of those situations, right? With kind of how we were feeling about the Spurs, right? Kind of saw it was written, like they were about to be good, this and that. Not saying that the Mavericks this upcoming season are going to take that leap, but they could. You know what I mean? With a brand new coach,
Hmm.
bring new game plan, new mentality coming into the building, and like you said, obviously Jason Kidd was a great coach. I don't think he deserved to be fired, but I think they just needed a clean shop and bring in some new blood and to bring back that edge to Dallas, I guess, with a good young rookie and obviously Dusty May, like you mentioned. Just I think that's a great pickup. I'm excited to see what that looks like. And like you mentioned, Sean Sweeney on the Magic, obviously that happened a couple weeks ago, but a lot of teams are making moves, so it's exciting. They're bringing in younger coaches, and feel like that's good for the NBA because I feel like it's usually the same coaching carousel. We get like Thibodeau coming back or Doc Rivers
Yeah, like
coming back.
Rivers.
You know what I mean? Like these type of coaches. So it's cool seeing good young coaches being able to get opportunities now, and exciting times in the NBA, man, for sure.
Yep. But let's get right into the draft stuff, bro. And we got a couple things to watch out for. If you're new to Three Man Weave, we appreciate you checking us out. We've got a lot of new viewership recently, so we appreciate you guys. And we're going to give you guys the rundown for tomorrow. I believe it's going to be one of the better drafts in the last decade. So please, you're going to want to watch out for a couple of these things. But let's get right into it, CJ. This is the question that everybody wants to know the answer to, and we won't know that answer until tomorrow. But who's going number one, man? Darren Peterson or AJ DeBonsa? AJ and Darren have been in a class in their own when it comes to the number one pick, and that's saying something given the loaded talent in the 2025-2026 NBA draft. Bro, I mean, we've talked about it at length on this show. There's really nobody else you can take here. We'll see what the Wizards end up doing with their choice. If it's AJ, they're going to get a 6'9" forward who's the most polished scorer in the draft. And at his size, it's just You can't pass that up. KD like archetype. I believe too, and I've spoken about this, his motor, but also his off the court personality as well.
Yep.
Him being in Washington would bring them a lot of new viewers. And again, you said it earlier, the NBA is a business. They definitely think about things like that. So he has that aura of a superstar already.
Hmm.
So just would be a no-brainer pick if they took him. If they took Darren, the Wizards would get like a 6'5" combo guard. He can score from all three levels, and he can dunk on you if you aren't careful, bro. We
Yep.
saw what he could do in limited time for Kansas. He was averaging 20 points a night there, but just one of the best scorers in the nation. And we've spoken about him and his archetype. Vince Carter, like we've heard, Penny Hardaway, the bigger guards. Like he's a dangerous player as well. I personally, I would take AJ, and we've spoken about that on this podcast too. But I just believe that he's a quote unquote generational talent, as they like to say. But for me, it's the motor, it's the want to play. He didn't miss a practice at BYU. He didn't miss a game, if I'm not mistaken. You just we talk about McCall Bridges, and I'll rope him into this conversation. But we saw obviously what happened this past year with him having an up and down year. He's always available. When it gets to crunch time in the finals, like he's playing his heart out. They end up winning the championship. You want players who want to play, is my
Hmm.
point. And AJ made that clear last year that he wants to play. Darren, there's still some question marks about what type of personality he is. Does he want to play? Does he love the game? All this, all that. Me and CJ both know he loves the game, but he has brought it on himself, with missing all that time from cramping, coming out of games when he's healthy.
Hmm.
It does raise some questions for some GMs, but just tomorrow, keep your eye out for who the Wizards take at 1. And ultimately, that'll impact who the Jazz get, because the Jazz will take the one of these two players. So
Hmm.
depending on who the Wizards select, the Jazz will get the fallen of that. And obviously, that's been the topic of discussion pretty much on every media covered company there is. They've been covering that. So yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like I said, this is one of the best draft classes in the last decade. And if you're picking number 1, we've seen Flag, Wemby, potentially now AJ or Darren Peterson, Ant, Cade, like the gauntlet of number 1 picks that have come out of the last 10 years. And if you have the chance to take one of these players here, you're excited. So I know the Jazz and the Wizards can't sleep tonight in a good way. Stress, it's good stress.
Yeah.
Sometimes you like, what I'm saying? You like to have that stress where you're like, we don't know what it's going to be, but I'm excited. Kind
Hmm.
of like our dynasty draft. And so, yeah, y'all keep an eye out for that. That's what I'm looking forward to finding out.
Yeah, yeah, it's been the talk of the town, man. We've talked about it, these past 2 episodes. So I think it's goes to show how big of a deal it is, especially with this draft and how loaded it is going to be. So yeah, I'm going with AJ as well for everything that you said. Obviously, being a 6'9" forward that can dribble, be a 3-level scorer, and then like you mentioned, it's something that teams are thinking about, and it's like the charisma, the off the court, his presence, and I feel like you say, he has that aura, as the kids would like to say, like he just has good vibes. He's always showing up. It seems like he's always willing to compete, and that was never something
Hmm.
that we ever questioned about AJ. And like you mentioned, that sadly is something that have talked about with Darren Peterson, all year. So, but we know that he's a great player nonetheless. And I think that
Yeah,
goes to
yeah.
show how great he is. The fact that that is something that is a negative thing, but he is still in the conversations to go number 1. So I think that kind of draws the picture for everyone that is wondering why this is a huge question that we're all wanting to figure out because of that alone. So I'm excited. Like you said, I think AJ will go number 1, but either one of these players, bro, I've mentioned it multiple times throughout the year, and I think they're gonna get a franchise piece regardless. So like you said, they're super excited and just ready for tomorrow night to be here. So I feel you. I feel like excited. Super excited, man.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Do you want to get into this next topic? Or you want me to take it
Yeah,
away?
yeah, I got
Because
you, bro.
I'm a little tired of talking about it. But
This is something,
yeah,
we say we're not gonna talk about it until it happens, but
it's for the
obviously
people.
this is what's been going on in the NBA leading up to this point. But Giannis
It's for the
potentially getting
people.
traded on draft night. Giannis Antetokounmpo has been a hot topic the last 6 months, and we think the saga is coming to an end on draft night. The Celtics and Heat emerging as finalists to land the Bucks superstar. Sources told ESPN's Sharonia the Bucks have been engaged in serious trade talks with the Celtics and the Heat, and the Heat, and are weighing significantly different offers for Antetokounmpo. Boston's offer centers around five-time All-Star Jaylen Brown. We talked about it, right, Z? If that's something that they're willing to do, obviously they are. If this is the talks in the town,
I'll say this, bro. I didn't foresee that to be the case.
Yeah,
Jaylen Brown's been healthy pretty
man,
much.
had an incredible
That
year.
matters. We just had a really good year. I don't love it for Brad Stevens.
Yeah.
I did want to bring this up and stop you here.
It's kind of surprising, honestly.
Right.
I feel like that's not like a Brad Stevens
Honestly,
thing he would do.
How dare him? Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum are like,
Yeah,
that's the Celtics, and I'm a Lakers fan, and I'm like,
yeah, I agree.
I'm looking over here just watching it. Like, I'm over here just like, that would be a shame.
Yeah,
Like, I don't care, but I just, like you said, I don't see why Brad Stevens would want to go out and get a 32, 33-year-old Antetokounmpo who's injury prone potentially.
mm-hmm.
We haven't seen him really play in 2 years. He hasn't been at an MVP level, or like he hasn't been top 2 in the MVP race since 2022.
Mm-hmm.
Shea and Jokic and Luka and Wemby are going to dominate that.
Yep.
Porsche Cade, right? They're going to dominate that top half of the MVP discussion. And that's what, that's what Jaylen Brown doing last year. It makes it so special
Mm-hmm.
because he was able to put himself in the mix with a Shea or, Jokic. And for me, honestly, seeing his growth this year would make me excited about this year, like, Tatum and Brown, because now they're both healthy. We've kind of figured out the East. We lost early too. We got a lot of rest. Like, it's not the end of the world. We still won a championship in the last 5 years. I don't love offering them Brown because Brown's really useful. And if the Bucks got Jaylen Brown, they're dangerous. Yeah. Like, it's not like I'd be like, oh God, like Milwaukee has like somebody. Yeah,
I would say is that a playoff team? If you just swap?
They have to make a couple moves, but it's like they would make the play-in, bro. Like, I don't think they would like sell out and be like, oh, well, we're gonna suck. Like, I don't think they would suck.
No, yeah,
especially not in the East.
I was gonna say, especially with Jaylen Brown, honestly, especially when he proved to us this past season, bro. Like you said, it's something that I wouldn't. I mean, we said it. I didn't think they would want to do that, but apparently it is. So
apparently the offer is Brown, like 2 firsts, a second. They're trying to figure out some other things and but like, I'm like, wow, like the Celtics are going to go all in. I mean, and mind you, it would be an all in move. The Celtics would be dangerous.
Yep.
I don't think we've talked about that, but they would be dangerous.
Yep.
And they have the shooters. Like, it all makes sense. They can stick Giannis in the paint. They don't have to worry about him not hitting threes.
Yep.
He can get out in transition. He's one of the best transition players that we have in the NBA. So it all makes sense, but I like it better for the Heat, and you'll get into that offer in a second. But yeah, I don't love that for the Celtics.
Yeah, man. So like Z just said, on the Heat, on the other hand, have offered players on cost control contracts and significant draft capital to the Bucks, according to sources. Miami has the number 13th pick in this year's draft. Boston and Miami both are preferred destinations for Antetokounmpo, who has been the focus of ongoing trade speculation for over a year now, Z. All of this to say, though, we believe a huge move will be made, so watch out for that too, Z.
Yeah. Probably they got to get it done on draft night because that's when teams are going to be selecting. And for Milwaukee, the plan is to use that number 7 pick. So they're probably going to trade it in the Giannis trade, potentially, or get, again, another first rounder back, depending on the team that they trade with. So we'll see. But yeah, that's another huge talking point. We've talked about that ad nauseum. But for the new viewers, obviously, that's something you should watch out for. We believe that tomorrow is going to be a huge day for Giannis, one of the biggest days of his career, just figuring out where he's going, the trade saga finally being over. And if he doesn't get traded tomorrow, that doesn't mean he won't get traded during the offseason.
Hmm.
So just keep that in mind. But yeah, that's another huge talking point. So and then last thing to watch out for, this draft class is loaded. We talked about it in the AJ and Darren segment, but that doesn't mean that there won't be surprises, CJ. We believe that the first four picks of the lottery are fairly safe. DeBonsa, Peterson, Boozer, and Wilson. But things will probably start to get interesting after five. Mikel Brown Jr., Darius Acuff, two of the best scorers in the nation. We've seen Mikel Brown Jr. go for 40 something points earlier or last season. And we saw Darius Acuff have a huge SEC tournament, huge NCAA tournament. We know those are some of the best microwave scorers in this draft. And in a normal given scenario, they would probably be within the top five. Just the top four of this draft class is so gifted. And truly, you can grab a generational player, picks 1 through 4. So
Hmm.
that's unbelievable. So yeah, just the talent speaks to that. The quality. I think normally these dudes would be in the top five. Guys like Kingston Flemings, Braden Burries, who Kingston Flemings, somebody who's I said it on the pod, but a real point guard. There's
Hmm.
not a lot of true guards in this class who are also looking to pass. He's somebody who can, get off the ball and effectively help his team win through that way. Braden Burries is a great scorer. Nate Ament, his length, we've talked about that. We didn't see a full season from him, but he was averaging 17 points. He could hit the three. And Keaton Flagler as well. They all make a strong case to be future stars in this league. And players like Ade Mara, right? We talked about him, but he blew scouts away at the draft combine. That's another potential steal here at 7'3". He could potentially be a 3-and-D center for you if his shot ends up developing. Super interesting player. Guys like Cameron Carr, LeBaron Filan, who we talked about already, but those are some of the, again, microwave scorers. LeBaron Filan, Alabama. We talked about the Aiden Holloway situation, but he was able to really ramp up his scoring in the middle of the season. Just a dangerous, like Tyrese Maxey type of potential I see in that, just the speed and where he's most likely going to get picked. And then Cameron Carr, one of the best shooters. We have the Thunder taking him. They
Hmm.
need shooting desperately, and he's somebody who can get it and go. He has a green light from anywhere. We saw that at Baylor. You said it too. He played with VJ as well.
Hmm.
Just somebody that is going to be able to come into the probably day one and make some sort of impact, and that's what teams are looking for. So just keep some tabs on those guys, man. Especially as we approach the middle of the first round. We know Ade Mara will probably crack the top 10, but at the back half, 15 through 25, there's going to be a lot of potential steals. We talked about Steinbach, we talked about Sanak Jr., we talked
Hmm.
about a lot of guys. So there's a lot of opportunities for teams to grab value at the back half of the first round, and definitely watch out for that too, because you guys might get wowed by the AJ DeBonsa and the Darren Petersons, but I promise you, bro, this draft class is loaded. So we're gonna we'll go through 21 through 30. We'll finish out the first round. We'll kind of make it quick because these guys are a little bit further on the tail end, and we don't know. There's some guys that are projected to go in the second round that could go in the first round. The first example that comes up in my head is Jan Hansen.
Hmm.
Interesting, move. Obviously the Grizzlies made that trade with the Blazers, but we didn't know anything of that guy,
No.
and he ended up being a great pick. We saw what he could do in the rookie showcase. I thought him and Donovan Clingan were having some fun, but he seems like he's going to be a pretty special player in this league. So that's kind of what we mean by steals, surprises. But yeah, we'll get in. We'll get on the website. We'll get into it. I'll let CJ take it away as I pull up the website here,
Yes,
and
sir.
yeah, we'll finish out the mock draft.
Yeah. Yeah. Like ZD said, these past two episodes, we've been going through first to 10, 11 to 20. This episode, we're going to do 21 to 30. So, starting off with the 21st pick in this year's draft, the Detroit Pistons are going to be drafting in three-man Wee's eyes Egbuka Okori from Stanford, point guard. He averaged 20 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, two steals, 47% from the field, and 37% from the three-point line. He was Pac-12 Freshman of the Year, All Pac-12 first team, and he was a McDonald's All-American. I feel like that's a reoccurring thing with a lot of these guys drafted in the first round. But Corey
Yeah.
had a monster freshman season at Stanford and is in the running for a mid to late first round pick. He is a sensational scorer with a knock or with a knack for getting to his spots and creating his own shot. He does not have ideal size, but has solid length, pause, and strength for the position. Detroit gets a scoring guard who can develop into a starter alongside Cade Cunningham. I feel like that's with their
The
first round
point
pick.
here.
That's the point
Yeah.
for the Detroit Pistons. We saw in the playoffs what that looked like for Cade and what that roster wasn't able to get done. But getting someone in this draft to try to help out, when Cade isn't on the floor, even when Cade is, and just giving it to another point guard to kind of run the offense. I think that's where Corey would be a great fit for them. I'm not gonna lie to you, I really don't know much about him, but he was able to get to 20 points in the college basketball, shooting pretty efficient. So, like we just said, I think it would be a perfect fit for the Detroit Pistons to get him right here.
Yeah. I know about like a couple of these guys, Dalen Swain,
Yeah.
did some research on him, Koa Pete,
Yep.
Vsar. We'll talk about these guys in a
Hmm.
couple seconds here. But yeah,
Bennett
I didn't really
Stokes.
watch the Corey a ton. I
Hmm.
don't want to speak on, a player I haven't really analyzed. He was, after Jaden Quaintance, I saw his name and, I watched some of the highlights. The size is a little bit underwhelming for sure, but like you said, just somebody that the Pistons can pair alongside Cade, and they're desperately looking for a scorer. We know Karis LeVert wasn't that. Duncan Robinson wasn't really that. We know Asar Thompson can't be that. So they're trying to figure out every possible way to get Cade some more scoring. We know Tobias Harris is a little bit inconsistent. So yeah, the 21 pick, Buka Kore. So we'll see, man, going to the Pistons. But number 22 pick, man, we have on this, we got the Sixers taking Allen Graves, a power forward from Santa Clara. Graves averaged about 16 points per game, 7 rebounds, averaged only 3 assists, 1 steal, shot 55% from the floor and about 36% from three. He's 6'8". This is another interesting guy, another wing, very interesting profile. We know guys from Santa Clara, J-Dub,
Dub.
right?
Hmm.
If I'm not mistaken.
Yes,
And
sir.
then Dub, Pods. There's a couple of guys that come out of Santa Clara who can score at a high level, and Allen Graves is another one of those players. He had a breakout year, and he's definitely one of the most underrated players in the entire country and in the draft this year. He's a low usage player, which is interesting because that's where you can be effective in the NBA with the less dribbles. We saw Con Knipple, not a big dribbler, but he
Hmm.
was one of the most effective players last year, easily top 100 players in the NBA, even though he was low usage. His usage started to increase as the year went on, as the Hornets started to see what he can do, and that's usually what happens in the NBA. They start putting the ball in your hands more, but Graves is no stranger to having the ball in his hands. Philly definitely needs a versatile forward as well who can play multiple positions on defense and also on offense, give him like a 2 to 4 spot. Another Kelly Oubre type player, and Graves definitely fits that mold. So he's definitely the kind of player that can make a team better without having a featured role, and that's exactly what the Sixers need. They're star heavy.
Hmm.
I need somebody who can come in and just immediately impact from day one without having the ball in their hands. And Allen Graves was able to do that at Santa Clara. And oh yeah, he's shooting about 37% from three, which is awesome. So
Hmm.
I believe this is a potential steal here. If somebody wants to reach on Allen Graves, I don't blame you. So
Hmm.
yeah, this is another guy who I'm interested in. But let's see who the Sixers take because there's a lot of people they could take here at 22.
Yeah. Yeah. Going into the next pick, the 23rd pick, the Atlanta Hawks will be drafting Henry Vassar coming out of North Carolina. He's a center, 7 foot big man out of North Carolina, like I just mentioned. 14 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2.2 blocks, shooting 52% from the field and 34.7% from the 3 point line. He was all ACC second team, ACC Defensive Player of the Year finalist, and he led the ACC in blocks. Vassar is a glue guy center who does all the dirty work, rebounds, and defends well, and can step out and hit the outside shot as well. He is a high energy player who seems to be everywhere on the court. Atlanta already took Mara at 8 and now adds Vassar as a backup center who can develop into a starter. Two big men in one draft is a bold move, but the Hawks need front court depth, like we mentioned earlier in our mock draft whenever we had Mara go in there as well. But Henry Vassar, yeah, like I'm the Carolina guy over here, ladies and gentlemen. I was able to watch him play a decent amount. Uh, Obviously, I think I mentioned it before. Having a 7 foot center in college basketball is so pivotal and really can change up game plans for a lot of rosters. And whenever Vassar was on the court, he has that presence, like I just mentioned. He defends well, rebounds very well as well. And even when you need to get a bucket, he was able to not even like body his way in, but kind of finesse, has good touch, and like I mentioned earlier, he could step out and hit the three. So a great pick for Atlanta, needing more front court depth, like we talked about earlier. And I think adding two bigs, like we just mentioned, is pretty risky, but I think that's really all that they're missing. They have good guards, obviously with Nah and then Dyson Daniels.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
got
yeah.
have good forwards and wings. They're needing more center depth. So Vassar, late in the first round, I'm not mad at that pick. Honestly, I like it a lot.
Yeah, bro. And he another him and Caleb Wilson. I mean, Visar was shooting like 60% from the field.
Hmm.
I mean, this dude is he's a pretty much walking bucket. If you're able to get him in, down low, he can take advantage of the space, and he'll be able to finish. And again, you said it, but the Hawks are weak in the front court. A Akamu's on an island, so they need to figure out who they can get in the building who can help him be a good center. And
Hmm.
yeah, they're gonna surely draft. I think they should take Mara if available, because even if they don't take even if they don't take Visar here, they're able to get Mara. If they're able to get one center out of their two picks in the first round, then this is a win for them. So yeah, I
Hmm.
don't mind it here. I like it. Moving on to number 24, though, we got the New York Knicks. We got them taking Bennett Sturts out of Iowa. Bennett Sturts was averaging about 20 points per game, and really the highlight was he was shooting 40% from deep. He's a small and craftier guard. He's one of the smaller players in this year's draft, but he led the Big Ten in 3-point percentage. He's somebody who can shoot the lights out from three. He has a pretty good ability to get to the mid range as well. We saw him, he shot pretty decent percentage. It was like 48% from the floor, but where he struggles is just getting to the rim.
Hmm.
It'll probably catch up to him at an NBA level. Where I see him fitting in is being a catch and shoot um, three guy. Like, he's not going to be able to really go off the dribble like that, and especially going to New York, they won't be expecting him to. Who I have him comped as is similar to is a Tyler Kolek with less ball handling skills. I think if he improves his ball handling skills a little bit, he'll turn into a Tyler Kolek who we saw, you know, play pretty well in the NBA Cup. We know he didn't get any run in
Hmm.
the finals, and I'm sure Bennett Sturts probably wouldn't get a ton of run in the finals if they made it back there again.
Hmm.
But he's NBA ready. The shot is NBA ready,
Yep.
and they just got to figure out, some of the defensive liabilities, and then also if he can get to the rim a little bit more consistently, because that's one thing that Con Knipple did really well last year. That was like a knock on him. He wasn't athletic. He wasn't able to get to the rim, but he was actually getting to the rim a decent amount too. And I think when you watch basketball, you understand how this works. When you shoot so well, teams hug up on you. That creates driving lanes because they're
Hmm.
dragging themselves all the way away from the basket. And Bennett Sturts has a chance to be able to do that. You can just become a good finisher because of your 3-point shooting gravity.
Hmm.
So that's the one thing I'll say about him. But the Knicks don't need a ton, but adding 3-point shooting can never help, and especially another person who can back up Brunson,
Hmm.
it makes perfect sense.
Yeah, yeah, I think it's a great spot for him, honestly, especially what the success that Jose Alvarado had. Not comparing them, very different players, but he could kind of have that same type of role. Being the taking the pressure off of Brunson, he could be in there and
Yeah,
potentially running two small guard lineups like we saw them do in the finals. So I think he would be perfect for them to get into this spot. And we've seen even with Brunson in his what he was lacking defensively, we've seen that the Knicks can still be able to win a
be
championship
fine.
with
Yeah,
that. So I think this would be perfect for them, adding more depth in that guard spot, and specifically just coming off the bench. So whenever Brunson gets a little bit of a break, they'll have someone that they could potentially run the offense through. And obviously, that's a lot to ask of for a rookie, but think he'll be positioned well enough. You know, obviously they're champions now. They have the swag, after winning a championship. So I think it'll be a good spot for him to really develop and turn into potentially a good role player coming off the bench. But going into the next one, there's someone that you said you're pretty high on. Obviously, a hometown kid for us, but we got Dalen Swain getting drafted by the Los Angeles
Hmm.
Lakers out of the University of Texas. He's a 6'7" forward coming out of the University of Texas, averaging 15 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 1.3 steals, shooting 46.8% from the field and 31% from the 3-point line. He was all Big 12 second team, Big 12 most improved player of the year, and he led Texas in scoring. And, we were able to see what that run that they went on in the college playoffs. So, he was a huge player and the reason why they even got to that point. So Swain is a high level athlete with NBA level tools who competes hard on both ends and has a lot of versatility. The 3-point shot still needs work, and his offensive skill set is still developing, but the physical tools are there. The Lakers need wing depth, and Swain gives them a young player who can defend multiple positions and develop into a contributor. Z.
Yeah, hopefully Connect can go somewhere else, but hopefully we just start playing our draft picks. I don't believe it really matters who we take here
Mm-hmm.
because there's only a couple more guys left on the board anyway. So, in my opinion, I believe that Rob Pelinka can either take a center here, Azubi Ejiofor, who we'll get into in a second. If they want to reach on a center, that's fine, but the plan needs to be to actually play the pick that we get. So I
Mm-hmm.
hope that we do that. Dalen Swain was a good scorer. He's not going to wow you, but he's definitely efficient. And at the wing spot at his size, is something
Mm-hmm.
that we need.
Yep.
He's 6'8" is something we could use. Again, Thero's 6'8" as well. We've been drafting wings recently, and even Dalton Connect's like a bigger guard, really a bigger
Mm-hmm.
small forward, so bigger two guard. So we just need to figure out a way to get these guys on the court. And even seeing Bronny play makes me happy. But I said this before in the last podcast, but how can you stack picks in a row that correlate with each other? You can't just be out here picking, random people for no reason, especially at the back half of the draft. When you're in the top half, you pick best available, but back half, you can start picking for fit.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's how I see it. So this is a good fit, but hopefully we can just get him on the court. But moving on to 26, man, we got Koa Pete from Arizona going to the Denver Nuggets. Koa Pete averaged about 14 points a game, grabbed 7 boards. Arizona shot 52% from the floor and only 30% from three. He's about 6'8", 245. But yeah, Pete dropped a lot
Mm-hmm.
just because of his performance in the combine. It was, the measurables didn't come in at a good measurement, and then some of the athleticism stuff, the vertical, the three cone drill, were a little bit lacking. We've seen Koa Pete be a top 10 guy in high
Mm-hmm.
school, and he fell a lot last year. So hopefully he can make up for it a little bit. He does have a rock solid frame and NBA ready body. Pause. He's probably more of a high end role player though. To be honest with you, CJ and I believe that he won't ever be an impactful player until he adds that 3-point shot. You need a 3-point shot in today's NBA, no matter where you play. And Pete really struggles with that. So he's going to have to clean that jumper up if he's going to be a key contributor to the Nuggets. We know the Nuggets have Nikola Jokic. They also have a lot of other guys who can score. So Pete would be able to come in and kind of be, I'm trying to think of a similar archetype, but Bruce Brown, Peyton Watson, they all can hit threes. We'll have to see how he fits in because I don't know if the archetype now in the NBA is like a player like of his caliber, somebody who's athletic, doesn't really shoot a ton of mid ranges or jump shots, but like isn't super tall.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of have
Do,
to see if he turns into a defensive specialist or
yeah,
something
I was about
else.
to say, do you think like a Aaron Gordon type of like vibe, like just athletic, 6'8" forward?
I can see that, but even AG was hitting threes, bro.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Like
right.
he would rein in like fucking like bro. Sometimes I'd be like, why does Aaron Gordon? I think he went for like 50.
Yeah, yeah,
He had like hella threes. I'm like, bro, if AG was shooting a decent, and that's actually a good comp because
I guess AG before he started
Aaron
shooting
Gordon,
threes.
yeah, Aaron Gordon in the time, like you said, like when he was in Orlando,
Mm-hmm.
I would say he's similar to Koa Pete. But even Aaron Gordon, going to Arizona too,
Arizona,
of course
yeah.
I see that. But yeah, I could see that, CJ. So he even got a great 3-point shot. That's what I was going to
Mm-hmm.
say. So hopefully Koa Pete can work on that. But Pac-12 Freshman of the Year finalist, wasn't able to get it, but still did well at Arizona. I don't want to talk down
Mm-hmm.
too much, but he definitely dropped over the
De-
last year and
definitely.
a
I remember
half,
him
which is
being like a top 10 pick, honestly. Like I remember seeing him like that high before like season started and obviously throughout the year, but that was the,
yeah, I didn't want to say all that, but
yeah. But
that's the truth.
yeah, no, I couldn't, like you were talking about it more. I didn't really watch him play a lot. I knew he was, obviously one of the best players in this class, recruiting coming into college, but like you said, I think it little underwhelmed. Oh, he underperformed, I guess, to hit what we were expecting, especially with this draft class and seeing how everyone's been able to rise up and show that they can compete and contribute to winning basketball games. I think it's such a loaded draft class that he is getting to that back half of the draft and he can still like you said be a great contributor for a roster potentially with his NBA size already pretty much right out the gate. So shout out to Koa Pete like you said. But heading into the 27th pick, we have the Boston Celtics drafting Malik Thomas, guard out of Arkansas. He averaged 18 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, steal and a half, shot 46% from the field, and 39% from the 3-point line. He's a 6'4 guard, like I mentioned earlier. He was SEC Freshman of the Year, All SEC second team, and he was a McDonald's All American as well. Um, Thomas is a silky smooth scoring guard who does not have elite size but has a great feel for the game and a high skill level. His shooting touch is already NBA ready, and the Celtics love adding players who can shoot off the catch and move without the ball. He needs to add strength, but Boston has a development infrastructure to bring him along properly. And obviously, he was running mates with Darius Acuff Jr. So him and Acuff, I think we saw what his ability to like I just mentioned to not always need the ball but still be able to score at a high level. I think that is a perfect fit for what Boston does and how they like to play, and they're super up tempo shooting threes. Feel like that would be a perfect spot for Malik Thomas to go. And we said keep saying that this draft is loaded. He could potentially be a top 10 pick in a lot of drafts, and now he's almost being
Yeah,
the last pick in the first round. So shout out to Malik Thomas and what he was able to do right next to Darius Acuff. One of the best, most exciting, scoring backcourts in college basketball this past season.
100%. But moving right along, man, at the number 28 pick, we got the Minnesota Timberwolves selecting Zuby Ejiofor
Mhm.
from St. John's. We know he was a 4-year senior. He comes in at 6'8". He's like 245. He's averaging about 16 a game. I shot about 56% from the floor. But for me, bro, it's the defense. We know Ejiofor is a little bit undersized for the forward position, to be honest, and the power forward spot specifically, and that's what he played at St. John's. But he's a high energy player. Minnesota desperately needs some front court depth, with Randall and Gobert. Whenever they go to the bench, who's going to be able to fill those spots outside of Nas Reed? And Ejiofor gives them an answer to that. We know Jaden McDaniels is coming to his own as the 1B. They don't need a superstar player here at this pick. He can just get minutes through his effort and his toughness. I don't think he'll score a ton for the Timberwolves. He scored a lot more for St. John's, but he is a 4-year senior, which we've seen how that's played out recently. It's been pretty good because you get the maturity. You've seen a lot of the game, so it could be a good pick for the Timberwolves. I didn't watch him a ton at St. John's, but I'm interested to see who they take with the 28th pick. But that's who we got mocked at that spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, going into almost at the end, we're at the 29th pick right now. This will be the Cleveland Cavaliers drafting Terrence Reed Jr., center out of UConn. He's a 6'10 center. He averaged 14 points, 10 rebounds, 1.6 assists, and 2.3 blocks, shooting 58% from the field, Z. He was all Big East first team, Big East Defensive Player of the Year. He also led the Big East in field goal percentage, like I just mentioned, with the 58%. And his combine measurement, he is a combine measurement standout. Reed measured out really well at the combine, and his first round resume is locked in. He is a burly big man with a really good footwork, great paint presence, sorry, and is a difference maker on the boards. UConn has a history of producing NBA ready bigs, and Reed is no different. Cleveland gets a physical center who can back up Evan Mobley and contribute immediately. I the game that stands out for me is the one in the tournament. I believe he had like 20 and 20, I believe, 20 points, 20 rebounds. And, I think that's, we talked about it. I brought it up a couple of times whenever we're looking at some draft prospects. That was one of those where I'm like, man, I haven't heard about this guy all year. He just had this performance. Obviously he's
Hmm.
probably going to go in the first round then, right? So it's dope seeing that now that he made it into our mock draft being that first round talent. And it was just what he was able to do, just dominating. I think he was, I don't remember what team exactly. I know he was, a lot bigger than whoever their center was at the time. But the fact that you can, you know, have a presence, be able to dominate like that, and then being defense player of the year. I think that's the main thing for the Cavs that we've seen them be able to have that double big lineup and what that looks like. But having some more depth and having someone else go in while those guys are taking a break, I think this will be a perfect spot for Terrence Reed Jr. to go in Cleveland.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, just playing behind Mobley, they just need a little bit more front court depth there. So I like it. But this is the last pick of the first round that we got mocked out. But, the number 30 pick is going to the Dallas Mavericks. We got them selecting Isaiah Evans from Duke. Evans was a interesting player. He's averaging about 15 a game, shooting about 40% from three. He's 6'6". He made all SEC second team, and he was top five in 3-point percentage in the ACC. But he has great shooting touch, and he's got a release that's pretty impossible to block. But he's skinny, bro. He's skinny. He only weighs 185 pounds. He needs to bulk up a little bit more before he's NBA ready. These are the picks that, truth be told, anybody can get selected.
Hmm.
At 25 down from the first round. So we'll have to see how correct we are with these. But Dallas gets, potentially a Mikal Brown Jr., a Darius Acuff Jr. as well earlier in the draft. And then they take Evans here because he can shoot well. They need shooting desperately. Their bigs are pretty good if they can be healthy. Now that's the big question mark. If they can be healthy, I'm interested to see what the Mavericks do. They may take a big here.
Hmm.
We'll just have to see. But yeah, he did well at Duke. He shot the three well. They didn't have the best year last year. We've seen Duke have a lot better years, but I think he contributed at a high level, at least from three, which is nice to see. And he's one of the better shooters in this year's draft. So uh, we'll see. We'll see who the Mavericks take. It's via the Thunder, so they got a first round pick via the Thunder that they're going to use, and we'll find out. We'll find out. I think Dallas has an interesting profile. They got to figure out what they're going to do. I wonder who Masai Ujiri is going to take, even at their earlier pick and now with 30. But yeah, we got that finishes it out. Isaiah Evans from Duke. And yeah, that's all 30 for you guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that. It's pretty dope doing this. This is our first year doing this. And, we always say it, but you can go check out the full mock draft before we take it down after the draft. Obviously, we'll update it with the people who are actually on the squad that they got selected to.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can go look at it before it comes out. I don't know when this episode will come out. It may come out after the draft, but depending on how quickly we get it loaded up, uploaded, thumbnail, all that good stuff, you guys may see this. You may or may not see it before the draft.
Hmm. Yeah, no, it's like you said, super dope doing this. And especially with the how great this draft is expected to be, and a lot of the prospects. It's cool seeing, like you said, it's our first year doing it. So going through all the pit or the prospects, and saying how the fit would be, and it's dope. We'll see how well we do. See what if it ends up looking like our mock draft, but this is who we believe that these teams should be taking at the spots. But was there anything else you wanted to say, Z, before we dip?
Nah, man. We talked about the Mavs. You talked about Wiggins. Went through the Giannis stuff. Peterson. We said what to watch out for. I think this episode was good. It was valuable. It was quicker, but um, we're starting to get down to that summer part of the season, and
Hmm.
a lot of stuff happens. But we'll get into the off-season files in a second. But we're gonna see, man. Hopefully on Wednesday we can do an in-person pod, which will be exciting as well. And then, yeah, man. Just I don't know. Watch the draft. That's
Hmm.
what you can watch. That's basketball related. Watch the World Cup. Hopefully, we appreciate you guys' time. I appreciate your time as always.
Hmm.
But yeah, no, I don't have anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Nothing for me on this side, man. Watch the draft tomorrow. Like Z said, watch the World Cup as well. But if y'all liked and enjoyed this episode, Three Man Weave, don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see y'all next time, man. Peace. Three
Peace.
man, three
Three
man,
man,
three man,
three.
three
Three
man.
man.